let's jump on the review of the N Innovation show from the 29th. Match 1 was Akoto Hidaka taking on Kai Fujimori. This is your typical kickoff match for pro wrestling. Noah, we've got the veteran, the grizzled, hardened veteran against the young, upstart, young kid, young guy, young boy, young man, what have you, the rookie. And that's what we had here. And Kai Fujimori went in guns blazing, as the young guys typically do. They're typically fired up. They always want a big win, especially on a show like this. And that's how Fujimori went into this, really taking on Hidaka strongly and quickly. Hidaka caught up to him, though. Didn't take long. Hidaka is a ridiculously seasoned veteran. As Stu and Mark pointed out on commentary, he's known for training many different people in the business. So he caught up to Fujimori and leveled and went ahead pretty easily. Now, Fujimori stormed back numerous times. He looked a little bit more technical in this match, if you will. You can tell. It's fun watching these young guys work because you can see them improve with every match, and it's always something enjoyable. And that's what this was. And yes, you had moments, you had flashes where you thought, my goodness, Fujimori might get the upset. I predicted that last time on the podcast because sometimes my heart just gets ahead of my head. I knew the chances of Fujimori winning this were slim, but every time I see these young guys in a match, I really hope they get their first big win, okay? Fujimori's had some wins, especially in tag teaming with his brother. Yes, it's his brother, Alejandro. That's why those two click so much together. And, Noah's known for having a family style, like everybody in Noah's like a family. So when you are a legitimate family in the mix of this, that absolutely helps you out. But it wasn't enough, of course. Hidaka you could see he got frustrated, turned it up, decided he wasn't going to play around with Fujimori, locked him in a knee bar, which I believe he calls it the SC. Not exactly sure what that's about, but the knee bar locked in. Fujimori fought it for as long as he could, but in about 6 minutes, Hidaka had this taken care of. It was a good opening match, typical opening match for Pro Wrestling Noah, but good opening matchup. Next match, I love this match. It was Slex making his return to Pro Wrestling Noah from MCW. I can't remember what that stands for. It's something City Wrestling. I don't remember, but I don't watch it. Nothing against it. I can't have nothing against it. I've never really watched it. But I didn't know what to make of Slex. I have seen a little bit of him in Ring of Honor. I've seen him here or there, some highlights. I don't think I've ever watched a full match. I didn't know what his gimmick was about completely. I don't completely understand the name. It always sort of give me a tweak of cringe because it sounds so much like sex, but it probably has nothing to do with that. I'm just ignorant to what the name Slex is. Is that a legitimate name where he's from? Maybe. I don't know. But it doesn't matter because this guy's great. I mean, this guy came out just oozing charisma. I mean, the jacket, the sunglasses, the attitude, the build, built like a brick house, if you will. This guy was great. Now, I'm a big fan of Yasutaka Yano, and of course, like I said, I always root for these young guys to get their first big win, right? But I figured this wasn't going to happen. I predicted that Slex would win because Yano's not ready for this. This was his first his first Gaijin competitor, which is great, gives him more experience, but not enough. Of course, Slex won this, but the cool thing was Yano was, at the beginning of this, was hyped and ready to go. I mean, he's telling the referee to get Slex to remove his jacket, to get Slex to take those glasses off, because Slex acted like he was going to wrestle in his sunglasses. I mean, come on. Nobody's crazy enough to do that. Well, I live in America, so anything goes. But I think he was more of a taunt. Like, I'm going to have such an easy time here. I'll just keep these glasses on. And Yano's like, get them glasses off. Get them glasses off. Let's go. He was chomping at the bit to get this match started. And he started it really hot and looked really good. But Slex, again, is so powerful. He just overcame anything Yano had to throw at him at all, and looked great doing it, winning this match with what he calls the business bomb. He calls himself the business, like the business is here, the business is picked up. Really, like I said, really charismatic, really great. This match was solid, only about 8 minutes long, but really, really good. Yano really looked impressive, as he always does. Win or lose, Yasutaka Yano always looks good, and he looked great here. He just wasn't overcoming the powerhouse and the charismatic Slex. And boy, Slex has instantly become one of my favorites. I mean, this guy's just great. Everything about him screams, I'm a professional wrestler. But Slex is really super charismatic, like I said, overcame, won this matchup. He's got a big fan in me. I liked everything about him. And I'm still a fan of Yano, of course, but I can't wait to see what Slex does going forward from here after getting the big win. The third match of the night was where we really began to heat up. Now, don't get me wrong, the first two matches were great. I would argue that Yano and Slex should or could have easily been much higher up the card. It was that good of a match. For that to be the second match of the night is unbelievable. That shows you how good this show is when a match like that is second. The third was real personal business between Yuya Susumu and Kotoro Suzuki, who have hated each other for quite a while. I believe Yuya Susumu used to be a part of Stinger. Kotoro Suzuki came in under a mask, Kotoro Suzuki used to be a part of Stinger. Yuya Susumu came in under a mask and jumped him out of the faction, basically. Stinger turned their backs on Kotoro Suzuki and had Yuya Susumu help them do that at one point, and there has been a grudge between these two ever since. Kotoro Suzuki goes on to join Paris de Mal de Japon. Many people question that. Does he really fit in? He's not super heelish. I mean, he's willing to go where he has to go at times, but for the most part, he's a very honorable wrestler. And here he honorably said he would pretty much destroy Kotoro Suzuki. Why do I keep doing that? Kotoro Suzuki said he would pretty much destroy Yuya Susumu. I mean, he was very confident coming in here. When he walked to the ring, he looked like, big deal. This isn't a big deal at all. Yuya Susumu really got the match starting, going after Suzuki as he took his jacket off and the bell rang and we were underway. The brawling eventually settled down because these two guys are wrestlers. And some people question, I've heard guys like Jim Cornette say, how can a match go from brawling to wrestling? Once you're brawling, you can't go back to wrestling. That doesn't make any sense. I'll tell you how. Okay, and I'm not saying I'm smarter than Jim Cornette. I'm a fan of Jim Cornette. I'm sure he'd roll his eyes at me questioning his beliefs because I typically don't. I agree with a lot of what that man says. But how you do this is the beginning of this match was emotional. These guys don't like each other and they started to fight. But when they calmed down, they realized, especially here in Noah, that a lot of guys want to make it about who the better wrestler is. They want to get their emotions in check and not be driven by them. Sometimes they're not successful. Sometimes an entire match is brawling. It's rare, but sometimes it happens. Paris Del Mal doesn't give a shit about their emotions. They'll wrestle crazily, brawl crazily for an entire match. They don't care if they ever straight up wrestle. I'm not saying they don't, but they don't really care. Here you have two guys who really want to prove who the better wrestler is. So much so that they will put their emotions in check and see who can out-wrestle the other. And that's exactly what happened here. And it was very good. And while Suzuki was the leader of this match, meaning he probably had more offense than Yuya Susumu did, but he wasn't dominating. Not at all. Maybe about the last 25% of the match. The first 75% of this match was counters and trying to determine who was going to get the upper hand. It went back and forth all match long. And this was not a super long match, but this was no short match. And really, the question wasn't answered until we were almost at the end of this match, when Suzuki did take control for about the last quarter of the match. Continually hitting his moves, continually reversing Susumu's, continually, for the most part, working on the midsection, the gut, if you will, of Yuya Susumu. The referee stepped in and looked like he might actually try to stop this match a few times, just based on the punishment the midsection of Yuya Susumu was taking here. I mean, it was bad. And Kotoro Suzuki zeroed in on it and continued to work it over with punches and kicks and driving his knees into it and anything he could do to get Susumu to give up or have the referee stop it. But this never happened. Susumu kept going. Suzuki kept getting more frustrated. And right at the end, when you thought Suzuki might get the victory, the bell rang. The 20-minute time limit had expired on this very, very good match. Suzuki was furious. He was furious at himself, kicking the ropes, kicking the guardrail as he left. And in the back even said, maybe it's time for me to start over. Start over? Someone as good as Suzuki. That's just how frustrated this man was for not getting the win. Coming in here thinking, hey, I have this. I'm better than Yuya Susumu. I'm going to put him down. I'm going to take him out. And probably thought he was going to do it in fairly quick fashion. But instead, Susumu hangs tough, goes one-on-one with him, looking very good, and takes this to a time limit draw, 20-minute time limit draw. That's pretty impressive. Very good matchup. Really enjoyed it. Match number 4. Here we go. Paris de Mal, De Hapan. We're talking about Nosawa Rangai, Takano Jr., and Super Crazy taking on Kongo, Tadasuke, Hajime Ohara, the Kongo Juniors, and their new partner, coming in from Dragon Gate, Shuji Kondo. This was another great matchup. I couldn't wait to see Takano. Look, everyone knows I'm a Kongo guy, right? That's what I'm about. I love those guys. But look, I'm a Takano Jr. guy. This guy just reminds me of a modern day Stan Hansen. He really does. I'm not saying they're a whole lot alike. I'm saying if Stan Hansen were young and starting to wrestle in this era, he might be something like Takano Jr. That's what I'm talking about. Cowboy hat, bull rope. I love good cowboy wrestlers, okay? I'm not talking about urban cowboys. I'm not talking about someone who just calls himself a cowboy and doesn't look like one. I'm talking about a legitimate guy who looks like he stepped off a cattle ranch and could throw bales of hay around like they're matchboxes or something. And that's Takano Jr. This guy is awesome. I have seen him in Lucha Underground. I eventually turned away from that company because it got way too over the top for me. But while I was watching it years ago, Takano was one of my favorites. And I knew Paris Del Mal, bringing him in to know it was going to be a difference maker. But I also believed, Ohara and Tadasuke giving a call to Kondo would be a big deal for them. Now, it was. Takano and Kondo in the ring together. Woo, that's the kind of match Adam Lavelle really loves. I love watching that style of match, and we got that here. Now, don't get me wrong, Tadasuke, Ohara, Super Crazy, Nosawa, they were great in their own regard. But I was enthralled with Takano and Kondo. That's what I was enthralled with. And now Tadasuke came in and did a hell of a job. I mean, congratulations to 15 years, by the way, Tadasuke. Excellent. Wonderful. You've been in the professional wrestling business for 15 years in that ring. That's really impressive on this date. That's cool. And he came in the ring and really took it to Takano. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, say how strong Tadasuke is, how he's a hell of a junior heavyweight. And he is. And he came in here and looked like he may have gotten the win, nailed that huge lariat on Takano, but no, couldn't keep him down with it. And Takano comes back and wins it. Now, Of course, Paris Del Mal had to use that bull rope that Takano carries around with him, had to choke a couple guys out with it, especially Kondo. And that's what they did. They worked Kondo down on the outside by choking him with a bull rope so it'd be less effective. So that wasn't really cool. I mean, I want to see these guys match up wrestling. I don't want to see who can cheat the best. And they also used some kind of wooden round not tube, but some kind of wooden round item that they were choking members of Congo out with. So, they did their typical bullshit outside the ring stuff for a little bit. It wasn't a ridiculous long time, but it was too much, in my opinion, because it's always too much. Just get in there and wrestle. And ultimately, that's how they overcame. That's how Paris Del Mal overcame, by their antics, outside antics with a bull rope and a wooden beam of some type. And they won this matchup. I mean, big win for them, big loss for Kongo, unfortunately, here. And Shuji Kondo was not happy. Was not happy that he came in here to help these two guys, and they still lost. And he was screaming at them from what I hear backstage. And Tadasuke was intimidated by it and continually apologized for the loss. But I'm telling you, Paris Del Mal, De Japón gets a lot scarier with the addition of Takano. And after the match, of course, he whips Tadasuke with the bull rope as well, because, that's just what they do. Match 5. Loser loses not only their name. The loser of this match can no longer go by the name they have been going by in Pro Wrestling Noah for some time. In Hal's case, since he got here. And they also have to have their head shaved. What a big deal this was. This was one of the best matches on the card because it was personal, because it was meaningful, because it was sentimental. Hal versus Niho. Hal, the former member of Kongo, leaving on his own. Now, Haisami pointed out on her news page that we'll go over in the podcast coming up towards the end of the show when we do the Noah News. She mentions that Hal has really found honor in his name, that he really wanted to keep that name even though he was in Congo. And she also goes on to say, look, for the most part, Keno and the Congo guys have just let people who wanted to leave Congo go. They've just let them, no consequences, not jumping them and beating them up on their way out, nothing like that. If you want to go, go. But if you take note, as Isami does, the Noah juniors are much more emotional than the seniors for the most part. They are much more driven by passion and emotion. Not that they're better wrestlers, but they're just more passionate, more emotional. And the Congo juniors are like, no, we're not letting Hal leave with no consequences. We're gonna beat his ass. We're gonna chase him around. And they've been doing that. They've been working matches against him, singling him out, trying to make sure he was the one who got pinned or submitted in matches. And for them, I mean, my God, just a few shows ago, Funaki just beat the living hell out of Hal. It was impressive to watch. Not because that shouldn't happen. He's a much larger, stronger man, but it was no joke. And so here, Niho came in as serious as he's ever been, as focused as he's ever been, just looking as ready as he's ever been. Of course, so did Hal. Now, I pointed out on Twitter that Hal looked like he hadn't had his hair cut for some time. I mean, he had a large bush amount of hair, and I thought, okay, this is for effect. He's going to have all that cut off. That's what I thought. Plus, I just thought Niho could get the job done, but in the end, he did not. Hal overcame. Hal was being dominated, much like Suzuki and Susumu. The last few minutes of this match, Niho was in total and complete control. Of that, there is no doubt. It looked like he had that match won, and out of nowhere, Hal comes out and pins Niho. I was shocked. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it happened. Not because I don't think Hal is great and has the capability of winning such a match, but it just came out of nowhere after Niho really looked like he was dominating. No doubt about that. So, to his honor, to his credit, Niho, now returning to his old name, which, hey, this ignorant gaijin, Adam Lavelle, this foreigner, I thought it was HI69 or High 69. I never understood the name. I didn't. HI69. Okay, he's going back to that, but that's not how you say it. Thank you to Hisami and a few others on Twitter who pointed out that is actually HI69 is actually pronounced Haruki, because the 6 and the 9 stand for, it's HI, and the 6 is Ru, and the 9 is Ki. Haruki. Interesting. So he's going back to Haruki, and sat in that chair, had his ponytail chopped off. Mark and Stu on commentary pointed out that when a sumo wrestler retires, they have that happen. They have their ponytails, their knots, whatever they have on top of their head, that long string of hair chopped off. It's symbolic, it's sentimental, it's meaningful. And it happens in this venue here at Ryogoku. So that's what this is sort of reminiscent of, saying goodbye to Niho. Now, what does that mean for Haruki? Does that mean we're going to see something different from him? We're obviously going to see a shaved head, that's for sure. So, in a way, Niho suffers here, but he's just going back to a name that he had for a number of years and was pretty successful under. So I don't feel terribly bad for him. I do feel bad for Congo, who has lost 2 matches in a row on this show. I think it's the only 2 matches they had. They lost them both. Come on, guys. Hopefully tomorrow's a better night for my boys of Congo. But congratulations to Hal, who won a very good matchup after looking like it was certainly over for him. But he turned it around and won it. The 6th match of the night was Saiki Yoshioka versus Extreme Tiger. Now, this match didn't have anything personal going on. It had to follow that really good personal match. So it took me, and I think the crowd, a few minutes to get into this. Saiki Yoshioka, and I get tongue-tied with his name, Saiki Yoshioka. Sorry. It's not an inability to pronounce it. It's like, for some reason, my mouth says what the hell's going on when I put those two together. So let's just call him Yoshioka for my benefit. Against Extreme Tiger was another excellent one. I know that's the common theme of what I'm saying, but if you watch this show, you know it's true. Yoshioka came out with something to prove. I mean, this was Stinger's night in the end, and we're going to get to that, but Stinger had a hell of a night, and I'm sure Yoshioka wanted to start that off. Extreme Tiger, the only thing I knew about this guy coming in was that he's a former X Division champion in Impact Wrestling. But boy, did I learn a lot more. I learned that this is the kind of lucha guy I really like and respect, Extreme Tiger. Why? because he didn't make this match all about flips and dives and over-the-top, showy, flashy stuff. He showed that he could do that stuff with any one of them, absolutely. But he used it sparingly, and he wrestled. You know what I mean? He went in there and worked this match. He didn't go in there to make the announcers scream, "Oh my God," and the crowd gasp because he took moves that looked like it should kill a man. No, he went in there to fight. He went in there to show, I belong in pro wrestling Noah, and by God did he prove it. He won this match over Yoshioka, and not in an overly convincing fashion, but I felt in the 11 minutes that these two worked this match that Extreme Tiger was never really in danger of losing. Now, I like Yoshioka. I love his team with Susumu. I think those two are a kick-ass junior tag team. No doubt they look cool, they look badass, they wrestle well together. I like them. But this is a big setback for Yoshioka. This was Night of the Gaijins. I mean, if you're a foreigner on April 29th in Pro Wrestling Noah, that's an excellent place for you to be, brother. If you're a foreigner, you had a night. And add Extreme Tiger to that. He wins the match with the Tijuana Rock. And big win for him. And he says he's there to prove that he belongs. He's not coming in saying he's the best. He's coming in to prove he's the best. And taking a big step already against someone like Yoshioka is a way to get you attention and over flashy moves. And look, Extreme Tiger now, one of my favorites, like Slex. I really liked him. I really liked that he showed me he could work and not just jump around. Great stuff. Match number 7. This could have been the main event. I mean, we have title matches, so not really. But this could have been a main event because this was super personal. The invading Z-Brats, we're talking about Shun Skywalker, HYO, and SB Kento from Dragon Gate, coming in here to take on the Noah Junior regulars, Daisuke Harada, Alejandro, and Junta Miyawaki. Now, look, these Z-Brats are the cockiest, most arrogant. I mean, these guys, just the look on their faces make you want to slap them. I mean, my God, Skywalker wears a mask and you only see, the goatee area of my face on his face. The mask covers everything else, even his eyes. But he still has facial expressions that make you want to punch him. That's impressive. When you can wear a mask that covers even your eyes and your nose and we only see your mouth, and you can still express yourself facially in a way that makes me not like you, that's a hell of a job. And let me tell you, these Z-Brats walked in here with as much confidence, more confidence, I think, than Kotoro Suzuki walked out with when he wrestled Susumu. I mean, they just came in here like it was an exhibition match. That's the look they had on their faces. And the Noah Junior regulars, to their credit, Harada, really passionate. Now, he lost his junior heavyweight title to Eita. He thought for sure he was going to come in here defending that title. Doesn't, isn't a tag team champion, has no title, a 5-time junior heavyweight champion, but now standing up for the honor of Pro Wrestling Noah alongside his friends Alejandro and Miyawaki. And this match started with some brawling again. They settled down again, much like what I stated before. These guys want to out-wrestle each other because it's about pride, it's about honor, it's about sportsmanship, it's about look what we did without resorting to nonsense. So even though they can get nonsensical for a while in some of these matches where they just want to kick and punch, in the first couple of matches, first couple of minutes of this match, didn't really do it for me. Because it wasn't bad, but it was a lot of brawling, a lot of taunting, a lot of talking, a lot of going chest to chest. Now, it makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but I'm thinking while I'm watching this, can we get to the wrestling, guys? Come on, let's get to the wrestling. And after a couple minutes, they absolutely did, and it was remarkable. Skywalker against Harada is a match everybody's calling for after watching their interaction here. It was incredible, but instead, in May, I forget the exact date, we'll get to it because we preview everything here on Mount Ararat Podcast, but in May, it will be Harada versus HYO. Which will be fine, but so many wanted to see Skywalker against Harada. Alejandro was a leader in this matchup, really doing all that he could. And let me tell you something, though. Junta Miyawaki is a great wrestler, great young guy, on his way to the top of the card eventually. I believe that. But he is so passionate. His passion just oozes out of him. He can't control it. He's yelling, he's hollering, he's screaming, either in pain or in victory or in celebration or in frustration. He is very expressive with how he looks. His body tenses up, his voice, he's just loud, just all the time. I kind of think it's cool. I think he's got to walk a fine line of it being cool and being annoying. But for the most part, I don't have a problem with it. What I can have a problem with Miyawaki is he allows himself to be in the ring too much. Now, you're going to say, Adam, that's the Z-Brats keeping him in check. Adam, that's the Z-Brats making sure they cut him off. Sure, that's a big part of it. But I'm talking about every Miyawaki match I've ever seen in regard to multi-man matches, tag teams, what have you. This guy wants in the ring as much as possible and will work in such a way that gets himself in there. Reach out for tags, call for tags, insist on tags. And sometimes it's hard to ignore a passionate guy like that. Do you ever work with somebody like that? I can do it, I got it, come on, give it to me, man. Okay, no, go ahead. Or in school where you're doing a project and the guy wants to take over and is very insistent that he knows this and can do it. Then you're like, okay, I'll just sit here and watch you do it. You want to do it too. You want to be part of the job. But this guy's just so high-strung and insistent, you sort of back away and let him do it. That's how I see Miyawaki and when he's teaming with guys. He's just so insistent. But what happens is he just gets his ass beat down, not because he's not good, but because he's in there so damn much. I mean, he's not good enough to be in a match for the majority of it. And too often he is, and I think he was here. Every time, I looked, and I was looking the whole time, but I swear Miyawaki was in here more than anybody. And he paid for it. But he didn't take the loss. The loss came when Alejandro was in total control and it looked like the Z-Brats were going down. And instead, they nail him with a chair as he's on the top rope, and Skywalker pins him. I was disappointed in this. Now, yeah, the Z-Brats had to cheat. They had to get underhanded. They had to get, dirty. They had to beat these guys that they were so assured that they could beat by using a steel chair, which is ridiculous. But to watch the Noah Jr. regulars lose one of the most highlighted matches on their own show, it's kind of depressing that it was booked that way. I like to talk about wrestling as if, booking and behind the scenes shit isn't happening. The way I watch The Walking Dead or the way I watch, a Marvel movie. I like to watch this stuff as if it's legitimate, 100%, and there's nothing going on back there. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. But once in a while, a result or something that happens will slap reality back into you. The way you might say, why did they let so-and-so direct that Star Wars movie? That was terrible. Why did Rian Johnson direct that movie? I hated it. That's what happens in wrestling sometimes. And now I didn't hate this. This was a great match. It didn't make me hate the show or anything like that, but I just scratched my head and wondered, why did the director, Booker, come to that decision? The Dragon Gate guys invade and win on the N Innovation show they've been hyping for months? Not the end of the world, but I didn't love that. But congrats to the Z-Brats for their win. Next up was a match I'm going to say very little about because I'm trying to be nice. I have nothing against Dragon Bane, Alpha Wolf, or Ninja Mac as wrestlers, as people, as being part of the Noah roster. Nothing. But ultimately, this three-way match wasn't for me. This match was booked and put on the show for people who like this kind of stuff. The biggest insult, I will say, while I'm trying to be nice, is that when this match started until this match ended, I thought I had mistakenly turned on All Elite Wrestling. And I'll leave it at that. And now, the best thing about the match, something complimentary, it was elimination rules. Yay. Anytime there's a three-way, four-way, five-way match, which I hope we don't get many of these in Noah, please, it should be elimination rules. The idea that there's multiple men in the same match at the same time, the first guy that gets a pin or submission wins, stupid. It's just stupid. Why? No, the first guy that gets pinned or submitted is out of the match and it continues. That's how they're supposed to work. That's how this works. So thank you, Noah, for that. But in the end, Ninja Mac wins an insane match that was all about flips and dives and wasn't for me. I'll leave it at that. Now we are to the main events. This was for me. These two matches erased that three-way match from my mind. reminded me, shook me back into the knowledge that this is pro wrestling, Noah. Wrestling done right. The total opposite of that last match. These matches were worked like fights. These matches looked brutal. These matches looked like two athletes trying to win a fighting contest. A match between who is the better wrestler slash fighter. Who is the best here? Is it going to be the Kotogi and Yohei? Sorry about that. I messed up on my notes. Who's going to win this? Is it going to be the Noah Junior regulars, Kotogi and Yohei? Or is it going to be Stinger, Ogawa, and Ridgeway? And let me tell you what, Ogawa and Ridgeway are my kind of wrestlers. And that's no disrespect to Kotogi and Yohei, who have proven to be great junior tag team champions. I really see Kotogi and Yohei as sort of a modern day Rock and Roll Express. Now, I'm not saying they're just alike or that they're mimicking them or that they even care about the Rock and Roll Express. I grew up in that era. I'm a Jim Crockett Promotions guy. To me, Jim Crockett Promotions is the measurement of all other wrestling. There's never been wrestling, and I don't think there ever will be wrestling as good as especially like 1984 to 1989 Jim Crockett Promotions NWA. And I really see Kotogi and Yohei, these two pretty boys, and I don't mean that as an offense. They're pretty, right? A lot of the women like these guys because they're pretty. They're dyed hair and their fancy little outfits with stuff on, and looking like they just came away from some modeling magazine. But my guys, Ogawa and Ridgeway, just looking like they walked out of a bar. I love that. Looking like tough guys. Looking like if you encountered these two, you'd be like, oh my God, maybe we should cross the street. I love that. Kotogi and Yohei look like someone you want to run up and give a hug to, I guess. Not me. But I mean, in general, they just look, oh, look at these friendly guys. Now, they're kick-ass wrestlers. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they get in there and play games. They're great wrestlers. When that bell rings, they're as good as anybody. Absolutely. But they're pretty boy wrestlers, they're fancy, do all the cool moves and have the cool gear and the dyed hair and sometimes the dyed tongues, and that's what they are. And Ogawa and Ridgeway are just like, we will kick your ass. Shut up. And I love this. And that's what this is about. The high flyers, Kotogi and Yohei did everything they could. Kotogi's coming in here limp. His left knee is busted up bad. I told you in some of the other podcasts that Kotogi, instead of taking warm-up matches before this show, should have taken a night or two off to rest that knee up, and he didn't. And he paid for it here. Of course, Ogawa and Ridgeway targeted that knee. They ripped the tape off. They ripped the bandage off. My God, towards the end of the match, they unlaced and ripped the man's boot off. Because now that shows you how tough Kotogi is. He hung tough with ridiculous submission holds, from figure fours to step over toe holds to one leg Boston crabs to everything they could do to this man's knee, and he refused to give up for the longest time. Now, Yohei, if you remember, pat myself in the back a little bit here, and yes, I know that's only 18 inches away from a kick in the ass, but I'll pat myself in the back because just on the last podcast, I pointed out that I thought that maybe Yohei might have injured or tweaked his left wrist. I wasn't sure, but I thought I saw him holding that quite a bit, and I wondered if that would be trouble. And lo and behold, what did my guys, Ogawa and Ridgeway, do? Worked over that left wrist, and it was obvious there was some situation with it. So I like to pay attention to these things, and I saw, even in a match that wasn't extremely important, I thought I saw Yohei nursing that a little bit, shaking it, rubbing it a little bit here or there, and they exploited it here. Now, again, the champions have proven to be great, Kotogi and Yohei. Sometimes in single matches, not so much. I mean, Paris Del Mal demolished these guys, Kotogi and Yohei, in singles matches. But when they get together as a tag team, they got it going on, man. And they had it going on here. Spit the words out at them. But no, they couldn't keep up with Ogawa and Ridgeway's aggressive style, where they just beat them down to a point that Kotogi had to submit. He had to. I mean, he took so much damage, not just here, but the weeks before on that left knee. There's no way you're going to get in a match with men as strategic as Ogawa and Ridgeway with a bad knee and walk away the victor. I mean, if they would have, I would have been pretty disgusted, because I don't even see how that's possible. I don't see how that makes any sense. But we don't have to debate that now, because we have new GHC Junior Tag Team Champions Chris Ridgeway and Yoshinari Ogawa and I absolutely loved it. They stood there with the titles. I really loved here when at the beginning of this match and at the end, where Ogawa got in the face of Jushin Thunder Liger, who was a guest commentator, and before this show had pretty much said that the Noah Juniors didn't measure up to the New Japan Juniors. And Ogawa was not happy with that and threw a water bottle at Liger and let him know, I don't know who the hell you think you are, buddy. He's a legend too, just like Liger. And if we ever see these two face off, which Liger is retired, so I don't know. Could he come out of retirement for one match? Anything's possible. But it would be great. Two of the biggest legends in the history of Puresso, if you will, going one-on-one. But the confrontation between them, it wasn't as enjoyable as this match, because I loved this match, but it was a highlight. I really, really enjoyed that. And finally, we are at the main event. These both were the main events. They were co-main events, but this is the single title, the Junior Heavyweight Championship. We had Eita of Paris de Molde, Japón, challenged by Stinger's Hayata. Now, if you've been paying attention, you know this has been a violent blood feud ever since this happened. I mean, Paris de Molde randomly attacked Hayata after a tag team match. So the rumors were that they did that because if Eita was going to have a challenger from Stinger, they preferred it to be Hayata over Ogawa. So a little bit of fear, a healthy respect for Ogawa. I don't know if that's true. That's the rumor. But boy, did they pay for it, because ever since they attacked Hayata with the shampooing incident, I don't know. Ever since they did that, Hayata has turned into a monster. He has turned into a guy out for revenge. He has turned into a guy with his bright blue eyes glowing in the lights of the venue. A man possessed, out to prove that you don't F around and find out, as they say. That should be Hayata's slogan. That could be on a t-shirt for Hayata. F around and find out. Because, boy, did they find out here. This match was great. Eita really is he was so honored to be that champion. I know he probably wouldn't like that because he's a Paris de Molde guy. Shove your honor up your ass kind of thing. But he was. He wore that title around. He was proud of it. He defended it with a smile on his face. He gazed wonderfully into it before he handed it to the referee. And then he lost it to Eita, who's just on a crazy streak. I mean, this was a great match. But at one point, Eita decided to do a Paris de Molde type of thing and took off the turnbuckle pads, right? Well, it wasn't long after that Hayata tripped him into those exposed turnbuckles, ripping his face open, and he was just at a crimson mask for the rest of the match. Blood everywhere, all over Eita's face, all over the mat, all over Hayata. This was great stuff. I don't need blood to be impressed by a wrestling match, but once in a while when you get it, boy, does it add to it, and boy, did this add to it. Eita fought back valiantly. Paris de Molde outside the ring, encouraging him, cheering him on, encouraging him to get up and get back in the ring when he suffered a ridiculous, power bomb of sorts on the ring apron from Hayata. It was not a power bomb, but it was a big move, back first, back neck, head first onto the apron. Barely got back into the ring after that happened, but he did. Struggled to make a little bit of a comeback, never really did. Hayata controlled it from the moment he busted Eita open. He really did. Eita fought hard, and like I said, and really had moments that looked like, oh, he's going to come back from this. But no, Hayata would catch him, pound on that head some more, get blood all over the place a little bit more, and take care of business, winning the GHC Junior Heavyweight Championship with his move, the headache. And right around the half-hour mark, about 28 minutes, wonderful two main events here. Stinger stands at the top of the junior division as the GHC Junior Tag Team Champions, and the GHC Junior Champion, Hayata, Ridgeway, Ogawa, they own the junior division. There's no doubt about it. Hayata said they'll take on any and all challengers. In Noah, outside of Noah, they don't care. Could we see some New Japan stuff coming up? I think it's possible. With Liger there running his mouth the way that he did in his confrontation with Ogawa, we could see, we're surely going to see eventually some New Japan guys facing off here, Dragon Gate guys, of course the Noah guys. I think the junior division's on fire. I think this show accomplished what it wanted to do. The End Innovation show was hyped and promoted as, look at the Noah juniors. You want to see these guys. They are impressive. They're like no other juniors around, which is true. They don't work the typical junior style of flips and dives and no selling shit, right? They do a legitimate in the ring fighting style, which these last two matches showed you and me, in my opinion, what junior wrestling should be. And that should just be lighter guys working like the heavier guys with a little bit of the flippy stuff thrown in, a little bit, because they're smaller, right? And they utilize that shit. Sprinkle that in. It's more meaningful when that stuff's sprinkled in instead of it's just thrown up on you. I don't need flippy shit thrown up all over me, you know? But if you sprinkle that in your recipe of fighting and wrestling, that works well. And that's what these last two matches showed you. These last two matches, the Stinger, Paris de Mal, Noah Junior regulars. That's what they showed you. That if you sprinkle a typical junior style in with a wrestling working fighting style, that's when wrestling is as best as it can be. That's when wrestling is done right, baby. Terrific show here. 9 out of 10. The only thing that's keeping me from giving this show a 10 is the three-way match that wasn't for me. Yes, it was so not for me. I'm trying to be nice, that it takes a whole point off of it. Or this would have been a 10 out of 10 show. Would have. The triple match, the lucha match where the three guys wrestled, other than it being an elimination rules, just knocked the whole point off of this. But let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the fact that this was a great show. And if you like that triple threat match, this was 10 out of 10. This was awesome. This is a borderline perfect show.